I will go ahead and let Kurt take it from here. Thanks, Kurt.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate the opportunity to join you on this call, but as well as the opportunity to work with your advisors. And yeah, right off the bat, I mean, you kind of knocked it on the head. Like you probably are pretty familiar if you've written United Life in the past with kind of where we're competitive. And we've been described a little bit as a boutique fixed indexed annuity or a boutique carrier. Meaning we're pretty transparent on where we win and then where we don't win. And then where we win, kind of where are those stories that you want to pay attention to a little bit when you are sitting down with your clients based on their goals. Then again, if we have a product that fits that story. But this is just more of an introduction more than anything, maybe for advisors who are a little bit newer. And I will touch on what Jennifer shared as well. If you do have any issued business with us through United Life, please know you can still access and be a servicing rep on that business, even though the title on the letterhead, if you will, has changed a little bit. You're still going to be able to get access to all those policies too. And that's the beauty of kind of work going from one company to the sister company. And I'll get into more of what us as a sister company to United Life looks like. Again, as she introduced myself, I'm more of an external wholesaler. Account manager, how you want to describe us on the carrier side. I'll always point you back to the direction of Jennifer and her team. However, there is my contact information as well if you ever need anything carrier specific. I know Jennifer can get busy. If I'm not traveling, I want to be as available as possible. And our service team has grown over this past year, which I'll touch on a little bit too as we get going. Disclaimer sides, just to keep compliance happy, but we'll keep this short and brief. So who is GILICO, right? If you're familiar with United Life, you've probably heard a little bit of our story, a little bit maybe, but we're going on 100 years old. So in 1926, GILICO was founded. Their home office is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So it is cool. Next year we'll be celebrating that 100 years. Couvert Holdings purchased GILICO 2016. About the same time they purchased United Life as well. Both guarantee income life insurance company and United Life. We had good bones, and that's was something that Couvert was interested in. And what they've done is now just pumped capital into our product development, our operations, as well as our sales team, marketing, and so on and so forth. So that's really where we got into the fixed index annuity space. You may have heard of GILICO if you wrote annuities and you lived in the southeastern part of or fixed annuities, excuse me, you lived in the southeastern part of the country. Outside of that, we are relatively new. We are happy that we're going on our third year now at an A- rating with the AM Best. It takes a lot of work to get there. We're at the big boy table, if you will, and we're excited about our conservative growth. The number I'll highlight here, just in the IMO space on fixed index annuity business, we did, and it's kind of that center column, if you will, but we did $3.3 billion in fixed index annuity last year. And that's really with one product that you guys all have access to. It's called our Wealth Choice that we'll get into. So we've really taken our book of business, which in 2023 was probably a little heavier MIGA with just the way rates were. But it drastically shifted last year, and then where things are going this year, where we put a lot of emphasis into our fixed index annuity, but we do give you a competitive MIGA rate to go off of as well. Whether you're new to the industry, this is the first time you're writing an annuity, a fixed index annuity, or maybe you're a veteran, I hope to highlight some key features where we've helped some advisors win some business over the past couple of years. So I was giving Jennifer a heads up here. I grew up youngest of, my twin and I were the youngest of 5 kids. Grew up in the 90s a little bit, so half of my vocabulary is movie quotes or song lyrics. So this just kind of seems to be the year, especially when we look at like March and April, where volatility was super high. It was that notion of like, I don't know what the market's going to do. I'm a little nervous. I'm going to hold on to my money. I don't want to do anything with that. And that's where, hopefully, as I touch on the key kind of features that our products do offer, we can tie it back to some sales concepts to maybe help get money off the sideline, whether it's this year, next year, so on and so forth. But every time I hear that phrase, I'm still holding for whatever reason. This is the movie scene that I think of. But what I first want to do before we dive into kind of GILICO's culture, if you will, when it comes to product is looking at what we already know, and that's the S&P 500. Like, it's a staple in the industry. There's a reason a lot of carriers put a lot of eggs in that basket. It's because it's got 45-year history just on this slide alone, right? It's been around a little bit longer than that, but this is some important data when it comes to what's the environment we're in now, and then how can we capitalize on it today? And then if there is a rate change by the Fed in September this month, where maybe we ought to start monitoring it, how could we kind of look at the history to kind of highlight some key features of why an annuity or a fixed index annuity may be a good complementary product offering on top of assets under management or bonds, alternatives, and so on. So this is kind of a snapshot. If we take out April, and it's probably hard to see, but if we take out April, relatively speaking, the S&P 500 has been healthy, 10.45% year-to-date rate. We hit May 1st, go on to currently today, it's September 9th. It's been a healthy return of a year. So relatively speaking to maybe the notion that you hear in the news these days or how the year started, we're trending towards a green number, if you will, on that left-hand side of where 2025 is going. However, there's a quarter left. Who knows what could happen to it, right? If we have another April, we're going to be having that same conversation. So what we'd like to highlight, going back into, again, the strengths of our product tied to the S&P 500, is the last 45-year history, 75% of the returns have been positive. 78% of those returns were a double-digit return. Pretty strong numbers. And 8 out of 10 negative years that we see here were followed by a positive year with an annual average return of 11 to 12%. So again, we're in a very healthy rate environment right now that we've got double-digit caps that we're seeing, and we're seeing that actually play to our advantage based on the last 45-year history. We're just in a nice environment period. If we narrow that down even more to the last 10 years, and if you run an illustration with us on a hypothetical level, and I imagine most carriers are this way, but we take the last 10 years and then we just use that to forecast the next 10 years. So if that's the case, very similar for data that we're seeing here. 70% of the time, the S&P 500 is positive. So 7 out of 10 years, you should see a positive return. If you see more than 7 out of 10 years, maybe that illustration software is a little greedy. You know, you just never know. So we always like to highlight that 86% of those positive years were double digits, very healthy. And every year after a negative year was followed by a double digit year. 2 out of the 3 times they're 20% return with an average annual return of 12 to 13%. So again, if there is concern this year in 2025, going into 2026, again, there's tariffs out there, there's Fed, wars going on, all this stuff the media can play on to get us to believe maybe a narrative that's accurate or not, depending on the market. If there's concerns about, well, I want to get a guaranteed return year one, this is where we like to highlight the strength of some of our products. First and foremost, our MYGA. We keep it very simple. If you're familiar with fixed annuities, this is going to be very similar to that. Currently, we're not the hottest fixed annuity that's out there. However, 2 years ago, we would have had a rate that was #1 in the industry for a good amount of time. So this is a nice intro product, maybe to GILICO if you're not familiar with us, to get used to working with us, get your contracting done, because we could at some point have the highest rate that's out there. Key point I always like to highlight is we are down with OPP here at GILICO, Old People Premium. We'll take up to age 100 on our 3, 4, and 5 years. Again, depending on the premium amount, there may be some additional suitability required, but we're one of 2 or 3 options maybe out there that will take age ranges. So if you're working with a client that's maybe forced to mature their contract, move it maybe at age 90, 91, 92, they're in fairly good health, they're not in a nursing home, we could be a good solution for that on qualified, non-qualified, single or joint owned money. So that's really the biggest thing I would probably highlight. If you're working with older clients, think GILICO on the annuity side of things. And then we do right up to age 90 on the 6 through 10 years. But obviously, if you got any questions on our guarantee rate lock, which is our MYGA, we have resources on our website. Jennifer and her team will have resources that she can get a hold of as well and share with you, as well as we have an illustration software, so on and so forth. What's important with our MYGA is that is 100% EAP, so 100% Firelight. A lot of carriers are probably in that transition period of trying to work to there, and it's for hopefully the benefit of all users, you know, as we can really limit the NIGOs that are involved. But again, I can't reiterate it enough, it is 100% MYGA, or excuse me, EAP at this time. Next, heading into our fixed indexed annuity, when and where to use it, it's our wealth choice. So again, if you've written us through United Life, it's the same product. We give you a 5, 7, and 2 options on the 10-year with a competitive income rider. But what's kind of unique about the wealth choice, and it's a story that's worked for us, think of it as a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, best of both worlds kind of approach, where we'll give you strong growth potential in the form of cap rates, guaranteed rates, fixed rates, so on and so forth. And then we'll also give you a competitive income rider if you're looking for immediate joint income in particular. Generally speaking, products out there are either strong in one over the other, and that works for other carriers, but for us, we're positioned really well with a good book of business that we're able to offer you kind of, again, maybe not the best of both, but a nice blend and simplicity in the product to explain, if that makes sense. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is a current rate sheet. We can get you access to PDF copies of this or go online, but I'll break this down even more. Like we mentioned, if guaranteed return is a concern for your clients, or maybe you're sitting down with your clients and they've got money tied up in a money market, not doing too much, because they're not sure what they want to do with their money, right? We could put it back into the market, we could hold on to it. Maybe they're currently looking at another 12-month bond or something that's shorter duration in that point. Obviously, we all know the conversation that comes with that. There's something to be said about getting into a product that provides some strong renewal rate history and can get you some strong cap rates now, because we don't know where things are going to go rate-wise here in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. If I were to look at where our fixed rates were 3 years ago, wouldn't be anywhere close to the 7, 8, 6 or 9% that you hear there. But if the first year return is a conversation starter, it might tip the conversation towards maybe a fixed index annuity. We've had really good success winning with this story. We'll give you anywhere from a 7% first year fixed rate on the 5-year, all the way to a 9% first year fixed rate on the 10% no bonus. And if you do our bonus product, which is a 10% premium bonus, that's an all-in guaranteed return of 16% that first year. What's nice about that is only 10% of that's on a bonus recapture schedule, which is maybe a conversation for a whole other time. But relatively speaking to some other premium bonus products, it's about as client friendly as he gets. And you're probably going to notice a lot of our features throughout the makeup of the product, or the rates that it has, the fine language, the disclaimers that they carry is pretty client friendly, which has been a product and that's really worked for us in both the IMO space, direct space, and broker dealer space. The other thing I like to call out is it's got a guaranteed lifetime minimum of 2.95%. So you have a client that's 89 years old, they want to sign up for this product, they don't pass away to 103, so 14 years in this contract. The lowest that fixed rate could ever go for them is 2.95%. Not a bad story to maybe, if we're trying to, like everyone on this call, we know the benefits of maybe an FIA over like a MIGA, for example, whether it's liquidity, ADL doubler related features, terminal illness, nursing home confinement waivers, additional comp, right? That 2.95% adds another layer of conversation to why a fixed index annuity may be maybe a better solution than a MIGA, depending on the duration that the client's looking to go with. So we do like to call that out. So again, where's our fixed index annuity winning? If you're looking for a guaranteed high return year one, we give you a high first year fixed rate with, again, a nice lifetime minimum of 2.95%. So great, first year sounds really good. How does year 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. stack up? This is where now we really lean into our renewal rate history. We tie to our cap rates, our par rates, our trigger rates, and so on. So prior to October of last year, all you really would have seen here is the S&P 500, which we give you a cap rate and we gave you a par rate. October, we added the trigger rate, which I'll get into how ours is different maybe than others, a bailout feature, and then the guaranteed cap rate that we offer on that S&P 500 dynamic intraday TCA index. So we'll get into that and break it down, but I always like to highlight that. Nobody's going to say no to a 9% guaranteed return that first year, right, with that fixed rate. And then on top of that, we're going to give you really strong renewal rate history on an 8.5 cap, if you will, on that 10-year, or a 10.75% cap on that 7-year currently. Those are some of the higher cap rates in the industry on the 5 and 7-year. So again, there's our story, short-term duration risk. If we can lock in a 5 or a 7-year or 10-year product with some of the higher rates now, we're already starting to see a little bit of, if the Fed does make a move here in September, what does that mean for rates? When we look at where new business rates were 3 to 4 years ago, our bailout cap that you'll see there kind of on that second line underneath the S&P 500 cap is higher than where most new business rates were 3 or 4 years ago. So what's unique about that, if you're not familiar with bailout caps, it's one of my favorite features. Think of it like an eject button. So we don't guarantee our renewal rates on our cap rates. We just have had a strong success holding our renewal rates over the last 5 years. But if at any point in that renewal process on our 10-year product without the bonus, our S&P cap renews at 6% or lower, lower than 6%, your client can walk away from the contract surrender penalty free. There's a lot of, I think, substance and power in that, because that's our commitment to you that regardless of where volatility comes in on our call option budget and so on and so forth, we're giving your client a way out of this contract, whether that's year 2, 7, 8, whatever the scenario may be if that bailout cap is pierced. So again, sometimes you'll talk to clients and they're like, I just don't like my money being wrapped up in a surrender schedule, so I don't like fixed index annuities. And if you dig into that more, maybe they've just heard stories being burnt by renewal rates in the past. Well, if that's the case, we hope our bailout cap rate can at least keep the conversation going to provide some reassurance to the clients. The trigger rate is another story we've had a lot of success with. Thresholds are important to know on any trigger rate that is out there. Ours is 0%. So if the S&P 500 performs 0 or any amount above 0, your client's going to get that predetermined, almost fixed rate, if you will, at the end of that 12-month period. So again, on our 10-year product without the bonus, if the S&P 500 does 2% for the year, let's just say the next 3 months it tanks, but you got into this strategy here going in for the year, it does 2% for the year, you get that full 6.7%. Not a bad story. Again, I think if we're trying to have conversations of cross-sale opportunities, fixed rate all the way, right? What's the next easiest strategy? In my opinion, it's the trigger rate. If I were to do a head-to-head run of a 5-year wealth choice with the 7% fixed rate year 1, and then we go into the trigger rate year 2, 3, 4, and 5. Hypothetically, with the 45-year history we have with the S&P 500, we outperform a 5.5% MIGA that's out there, with the assumption again, right, the S&P 500 performs the way that it has. So we really like the fact that we offer you on the S&P 500 cap rate, bailout, par rate, and a trigger rate. And obviously, if you've got additional questions on how any of those work, Jennifer is a great resource there for you. What's also unique is the S&P 500 Dynamic Intraday TCA Index. We could really geek out on this. We won't. Biggest takeaways is, yes, it is a volatility control. We do like this volatility control for really 2 or 3 reasons. First, it's got a high volatility target. That works out for us here now that the volatility in the industry is pretty high on average. It's about 18 to 20% over the last 12 years. This has a 15% vol target, and it's only made up of 2 moving parts, the S&P 500 futures and a cash overlay. So what we see here is if the S&P 500 is performing at X, the TCA index over a year span should do about 80 to 85% of what the S&P does. Because we know the cost of our call options, we can guarantee this cap for the term of the contract. So 11% cap on that 10-year product contractually cannot go down. And that's the story here, is if you're looking for guarantees, we'll give you a nice bailout rate feature, and then we'll give you a guarantee cap on that TCA index. And then the Barclays has a guaranteed participation rate. This is not the environment currently that I would probably use the Barclays, so I won't speak to it too much, but it does offer you some international exposure, and it provides you a name like Barclays, like the S&P 500 clients have seen, potentially running across the bottom of a TV screen. But again, if you have individual questions on how to use some of these strategies when it comes to transitioning cross-sale opportunities or just winning business on an accumulation front, feel free to reach out to Jennifer or myself. I've got individual slides in all these strategies, but we don't need to take all the time going through them. Obviously, if questions, I definitely welcome them. And like I mentioned too, well, I guess I'll touch on it as well. 10% penalty-free withdrawal year one. It is RMD friendly year one. Obviously, we ask that RMDs be, kind of acted or removed, if you will, or taken before the transfer. However, we can accommodate if it gets to us first, and then we participate in those. Enhanced death benefit will pay out 110% death benefit on the accumulation value if the beneficiary is willing to take payments over a 5-year period, and then 5-year return to premium. Again, if there's a client you're working with that's a little nervous of surrender schedules, that 5-year return to premium can be a nice story where if the client's not happy with the performance of the product, which I promise probably won't be the case as long as you're tied to the S&P 500 or the fixed rate we offer you, they can walk away with their initial premium penalty free. And then the other feature, like I mentioned, is we do offer a competitive income rider. So I think over the last couple of years, we've seen how powerful income riders can be on a fixed index annuity when it comes to planning for retirement, or maybe they're currently in an income rider where you can replace them into another income rider that pays out more. We're going to be very niche in that as well. So if you're looking for immediate joint income, think GILICO as well. So what we allow with the 95 basis point fee, so we're happy we're able to keep it under 1%, but your clients can turn income on as soon as 30 days after issue. We get to the free look period, we can start income immediately. We can add the income rider on our 7 and our 10-year product. We can issue that income rider through the age of 80 and start it as early as 50, which, as you can imagine, we don't see too often. And what's unique about GILICO is the simplicity of the income rider. So everything we do is based on the account value. We don't have a benefit base that some income rider products come with, where you have to try to explain what this phantom bucket of money is to the clients, and then potentially now you're losing the client because they really don't know what that means, because now there's an account value, so on and so forth. Everything we do is performance based. So money that's earned by the contract goes to the account value. Fees come out of the account value, the income rider comes out of the account value. And where we have success is we don't reduce our payout factors for joint income. The reason we want to be known for that is because of similar stats like this, right? On average, a couple at the age of 65, at least one of them's living till 93. So we'll allow you to put the joint income rider on qualified money. Maybe it's pension money, or it's just qualified money that someone maybe marrying later in life now has, that they're getting married and want to put that benefit on, or it's non-qualified money, but we don't reduce our payout factors. So on level, on a 65-year-old, for example, it's a 7% payout factor. We don't reduce for joint currently, and our expectations moving forward that's not going to be our story, but it makes the math on an income rider very easy. We also offer an increasing option, and you'll see that those initial starting payout factors are going to be a little bit lighter, but like some other benefit bases that maybe have a deferred income multiplier every year, we have a 3% guaranteed roll up every year. So 3%, you can expect your income to increase until the survivor were to pass. Not a lot of income riders on an increasing side of things are operated that way, so it is a little unique, but a nice feature. I would still say with where those level payouts are, it's going to be hard to talk a client into taking probably the increasing option versus the level. But how's our income rider work? So this is an example of level on a single or a joint payout. It's going to be the same. But we take the initial premium, we'll look at the age of the youngest spouse, if you will, of when they want to turn income on. So again, 65 years old is 7% payout, 250,000 times 7%. That's what their annual income amount is going to be until the second were to pass. So again, easy to explain product. We get complimented on how easy our product is, and we really don't want to try to do anything to muddy that up. But again, if you got any questions on how our income rider works, please just let Jennifer or myself know. Lastly, is this idea of mitigating of sequence of return risks. This is just, again, another conversation point where if you're looking at maybe a similar producing or performing product, maybe on the income side, maybe it's in the market, it's a VA, or it's just market money that's out there exposed to the market. On the right-hand side, you'll see 3 years or 4 years in a row where they're also losing money and they're taking out an income subtracted from their account balance. And you'll just see that obviously to us it makes sense, but there's a depletion in that balance over a 10, in this particular case, 12-year period. If you're having conversations with your clients and they're like, I love the idea of like an income rider or penalty-free withdrawal feature, but I want to preserve my account balance as much as I can, think GILICO is well choice also, because not only do we allow you to take a competitive penalty-free withdrawal or an income rider, but because we give you potentially double-digit cap rates, leaning heavily into the S&P 500, you can see that we really hedge our bets towards having an account balance. In this particular case, even in year 15, we still have $52,000 account balance. Again, these are all hypothetical numbers, but sometimes that mitigating of sequence of return risk is important to some clients who are a little bit more conservative. Our replacement guidelines are pretty healthy as well with those fixed rates. Our bonus product of 10% will take up to a 15% surrender. So again, as long as that contract's 2 years old, we may be interested in it, whether it has an income rider or not. And then our non-bonus versions, to 5, 7, and our 10-year, will take up to a 7% surrender with that fixed rate we have also. And then lastly, we do have an agent bonus comp program, like a lot of carriers do. We've been told our bogeys are relatively easier to hit. So if you do $1 million with us this year, you'll earn an additional 50 basis points commission retroactive on all the business that got you to $1 million, all the way up to $1,999,999. And then this is a grandfather program. So anything you qualify for here in 2025, which we've got a few months, you'll automatically earn in 2026, with the emphasis that we help you qualify for it again. And obviously, if you hit 2 million, then you get 75 basis points. 3 million, you get a whole 100 basis points or 1%. But that's all I had. I know it probably took a little longer than expected, but we just appreciate the opportunity to partner up with you all. Again, if you're familiar with us from our sister company, great. We hope you had a great experience there. Our team here at GILICO is maybe a little bit larger, just being in the IMO space. So we hope that, helps us provide the same or a better experience. And obviously, I'll always point you back to the direction of Jennifer and her team. But if I can be of any help here, or our sales team can, always feel free to reach out. But with that being said, Jennifer, that is all that I have.
Got some storms coming in. Sorry, my internet just disconnected for a second.
That's all good. It does look dark out.
Yeah, technology, a blessing and a curse. Anyway, thank you. Lots of really good information shared there. Awesome job. I appreciate you going through all of that. So yeah, and obviously anything pertaining GILICO, everyone's more than welcome to reach out to you, Kurt, and anyone at your, part of your team or your company, as well as us, if we want to explore options outside of GILICO. That's more so where me and Sam are going to be able to assist. So anyway, any questions, needs, let us know where we can help. But thanks again. Appreciate the time here, Kurt, and I'll look forward to working with you more here as we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer.
All right. You bet. Oops.